Hey there, everyone. It's Kamber here with the YoPro No. I am here today with Andrea Masick, founder and career coach. We're going to learn a little bit more today about her business and her day-to-day, but just a little bit of background. So she is currently living in Chicago. She and I met over LinkedIn, actually. So we connected just once again. I'm always talking to you guys about the power of networking, the power of LinkedIn. And this is what it's all about. So, Andrea, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right, so let's just dive right into it. Go ahead and give us a brief background on where you're from and how you kind of got to where you are today. And we'll dive into more of the details in a little bit.
Yeah, so sure, like your other guests have mentioned, my path was not linear at all, and that's what I thought it was going to be.
Weird.
I know, weird. A lot of twists and turns. So I graduated from the University of Florida, so go Gators, quite a number of years ago, and then made my way to graduate school at Middle Tennessee State. And then I say that I'm a 2008 graduate survivor because that was the
Yeah.
deep recession. So I can really empathize with new grads, whether you're coming out of undergrad or your master's degree right now. I really empathize with the fear and the overwhelm and the stress that you're feeling at the moment. So I pivoted right away. So I thought I was going to be going into private consulting when I graduated with my master's, and that was not an opportunity at that time. So, like you just mentioned, the power of networking has been invaluable to my career. It's definitely how I've successfully pivoted and moved on to different things. So I networked my way into my first job, landed in higher education and was a career advisor. So I've just gone full circle to what I do now, but I did not expect to take that job at all. Met my first boss at a networking event and gave him my resume. We kept in touch, interviewed, and got that job. It was a period of about 6 months from actually meeting, interview, and then getting the job. And then moved on from there to go into healthcare. I was pre-med to start my undergrad career and then dropped that pretty quickly and found a different interest, which we can talk about that more if that's of interest. But I still wanted to work in healthcare. So I pivoted out of higher education into healthcare and then worked at Northwestern Hospital here in Chicago for almost 8 years and moved around there. Had a very fortunate career. I was able to move around and do a lot of different things. So was an HR business partner to start there, then moved into operations, then moved into training and development, and then finished my career there as an IT project manager. So lots of pivots.
Yeah, lots of hats.
And then left there to go to private consulting, and then was laid off from my private consulting position in the spring of 2019, which was the shove that I needed to start my business.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's stop
Yeah.
there for a second. I think
Yeah.
that is a really great way to highlight briefly all of the things that you have done. And again, like you mentioned, it was not this linear path, which we all kind of think, and we all are really believed to think growing up and in, throughout college. We just think that it's going to be this straight path. And
Yeah.
pretty much every single person I've talked to, minus a few, through YoPro No have said this same thing. And so it's just really interesting at the end of the day to see those zigzags. And so somebody in your position, you have seen, 15 years of experience that you're
Yeah.
in different fields and industries that you're able to bring to the table. So tell us more about that. Once you were laid off from this private consulting job, what happened next? Like why did you take that push? What happened?
Yeah, so it was really a culmination of my career up to that point, and I had been coaching formally and informally throughout my entire career, and professional development was always my passion, and that was sparked, indirectly from that job that I landed out of graduate school by accident. So I was already looking to go back into career development or the higher education space before I was laid off, and was, revisiting my network from my colleagues at the time. And I just realized that, I've been doing this my entire career on the side and while I was working full time. And it just was really, sorry, lost my train of thought. It was really important to me at that point in my career to give back. I had been, like many of us at that point, was in my early 30s, had been climbing the corporate ladder, and I was exhausted in more than one way. And it was really important to me at that point of my life and career. I just got married that I wanted to give back. This was really important to me to help others and set other people up for success. So that was really the culmination of, at that point, 12 years of work experience
Mhm.
coming into that idea
Mhm.
of starting my business. And that's
Great.
what I do now. I'm a career coach for recent grads and young professional women. And I help them find fulfilling careers for them.
Mhm.
So I specialize in career change, no surprise there. And then also launching your career in terms of professional development skills. So communication, professional presence, how to manage your time, really how to transition from a student into a full-time professional.
Mhm.
So again, I just packaged all of the wisdom and experience and knowledge I had over that time and now put it into my business, which
Awesome.
was not an easy endeavor. I'm now 2 years into entrepreneurship and still have a ton to learn, but that's where that came from.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I want to go back to, kind of what it would look like to work with you. But first, I just
Yeah.
want to touch on something that you had mentioned. You spent 12 years, kind of climbing this corporate ladder. And it's just something that I think will resonate with some people who are listening or watching this interview, because I was definitely one of those people. Again, you think that you go into a job and that's the goal. That's always the
Yep.
goal, is to climb the corporate ladder. But like you said, you were exhausted. You were so tired. And, that's something that it just, it's okay if that's not what happens. That's okay.
Yes, and this is one of the biggest pillars that I coach on, and especially because I work mostly with women, men, guys, no disrespect to you at all. It's just I as a woman as well, I have a lot more insight, obviously, as to how the female brain operates, but I do work with male clients sometimes.
Okay.
That being said, women, we naturally have the shoulds. This is what I say to my clients. We should all over ourselves all of the time when it comes to a career, what that needs to look like. And so that's where I was. And so what I realized is we have to let go of those expectations as we build a career. And so for me, I thought at that point of my career, fulfillment for me was building a corporate career. And that's what was right for me at that time in my life. Through those years, that was what I wanted. And we always have priorities that are going to come into play as we make career decisions.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of what I help my clients do as well as sort through that. So what's the lever? I always say, what's the priority lever you're going to pull on at that time to make that decision? So for me, when I was laid off, I was 1 month into my new marriage. We had just gotten married literally 1 month before I got laid off, and I was ready to step away and really take a step back from that career path and do something new. So it was just a great intersection of timing for me to do that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank
Yeah.
you for touching on that. Okay, so getting back to your company and your business and what you have done over the last 2 years as an entrepreneur, what you've already mentioned some of the services that you provide, but
Yeah.
say I'm a client of yours, what does that process look like?
Yeah, great question. So there's two different tracks essentially that I can work with you for. So the one track is career clarity. So you're ready to do something new. You're a recent grad. Typically, the clients I work with on that track, they've been working for a few years, anywhere from 1 to even 10 years. Typically, the sweet spot there is 5 years because most people, you've been trying out different careers at that point. You're ready to do something new. And I have a 3-phase program that I take my clients through of really figuring out what is it that they want, how to position themselves for success, and then really how to take action in creating that new success plan and pivoting into a new career.
Mhm.
The other track looks like what I mentioned earlier. You're a recent grad, whether you're master's degree, bachelor's degree, and you really want to enter the workforce full time or even part time, and you're feeling really nervous or apprehensive about what that means to transition from a full time student into a full time professional, and all of the things that no one teaches you. I always say no one gave us a handbook of any kind to step into adulthood in the real world. So that's what I do. I essentially help you build your playbook with that track. And help you figure out all of the behind the scenes skills that you need to have to really build a foundation. So the underlying pillar there for either track, whether it's career change with the career clarity track or the foundational skills with the going from a full-time student to professional, is foundation. I'm giving you a strong foundation to set your career up for success and really understanding how to strategically navigate change.
Mhm. Awesome. That
Yeah.
is That's great. I like having the two tracks. I think that's probably really helpful for people to see.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few more questions, and then I'm mindful of everyone's time, so we'll wrap things up. But one of my favorite things about interviewing young professionals who have, kind of lived two halves of the young professional equation. So don't take that the wrong way, but
No, I do not at all.
I've interviewed I've interviewed about half, 50% of my interviews are people in their 20s, 50% are in their 30s. And
Yeah.
there's always a very clear distinction. And I'm sure you can guess what that is. But what is something, here's, such a generic question that you hear all the time, but I'm really curious to hear what you think. What is something that you would have, wanted to know when you were in your 20s that you now know, in the later half of your young professional years?
Yeah, so I'm fine to say my age. I'm 37 and I'm really proud of that. I've built a really great career and it's been fun and it's been challenging. So there's two things mainly I would tell my 20 something self and I would tell your audience is one, slow down. And that's because like you were mentioning earlier, we are told that it's a series of checking boxes and going down the path and everything just is going to happen. And while that can be the case, it may not be the case because you're literally transitioning as a person when you go from school into the real world. So, you know, I'm a high achiever. A lot of my clients are high achievers. We want to blaze that path and just get there already, but take your time. Things have changed. You have changed. Your interests have changed. Who you are is different. So take the time to really understand who you are because that's what's going to ultimately drive your career and help you understand where you want to go. So that's one thing. And don't be scared to change your mind. Don't be scared at all. Testing things out is how you're going to learn and learn about new careers. Much like you would travel or try new food or do things like that, you have to test things out. I'm not advocating for being a job hopper, but there's definitely a strategic way to do that. I'm an example of that. I've changed jobs successfully, almost over 5 times throughout my 13-year career. And each time I've built that network, taken my network with me, and continue to expand on it. So there's just don't be afraid to change your mind.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Those are some really great points. And I like the testing things out because you can do it in a way that is appropriate. And I have people come to me often asking, does it look bad if I leave a job after 6 months? And I'm like, it's all situational, right? Like it depends.
Yes.
And I think you can spin things. I really do think you can spin things. And obviously if you go from job to job to job within a year and there's not really any reason why other than you just didn't like it, then that might look kind of bad. But
Right.
I think there's a lot of value in it. And when you said slow things down, that really resonates with me. It's hard when you're like building a business to slow down, and I'm sure you
Yeah.
understand that. But I'm learning slowly that it's okay to say no to things, and you have to do that in your 20s if you want to really maximize your 30s. I think so. That's just
Yeah.
what I've heard, but I think again, it's situational. Everyone is different, and some people might need to slow down at different times. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. And so just to wrap things up, Andrea, tell us if you had one piece of advice to give. I know you've given so many already, so many great points, but one kind of parting piece of advice that you would like to have our audience take away.
About careers in general or specific?
Careers or just your young professional years. So you can tackle
Yeah.
that question however you'd like.
um, yeah, I think just to reiterate what I said is really, take the time to get to know yourself. And this is something that I help people do of your skills, your strengths, your gifts, your talents, what you like, what you don't like. Because ultimately, the more you take time to reflect and really figure that out, the more helpful it's going to be for you and determining your career path, whether that's long term, short term, whatever the case may be. And that's going to really help you be clear on your next step.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, I think
Yeah.
those are some really great words to end with. So, Andrea, thanks so much for being on the YoPro Know today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.